First, the good news. Many Iowa farmers are taking steps to improve water quality. Now the bad news. Many are not taking action, and Iowa's water quality is not getting better. This is Professor Neil Hamilton from the Drake University Agricultural Law Center with today's Our Water, Our Land. Regardless what some people say, there's no real pressure to improve water quality. Certainly there is no legal pressure because many of the practices impacting water quality, like installing tile or applying fertilizer, are unregulated. No federal or state law directly addresses water quality in crop farming, and there are none on the horizon. Instead, Iowa's water quality policy is based solely on the use of voluntary measures. That's what the 2018 legislation provides, and also the nutrient reduction strategy. Some farm leaders are fond of saying doing nothing is not an option. But it is an option if doing anything is voluntary. In fact, doing nothing may be the preferred option if doing something costs money. This brings me to our topic for today, the concept of moral hazard. A new book on U.S. rivers, The Source, discusses how the availability of flood insurance creates a perverse incentive for people to rebuild in the floodplain. The author calls it a moral hazard, where one person decides on how much risk to take and someone else bears the cost if things go badly. Consider moral hazard and water quality in Iowa. I can choose to tile my fields, farm however I want to, and if there are any costs, they're borne by those who drink the water or further on downstream in the Gulf. I might limit my actions if I feel some moral responsibility to my neighbors or to the water. And the good news is, many Iowa farmers share that sense of moral responsibility. But in today's agriculture, most of the focus is on economics rather than ideas of morality. The situation with farming is compounded by two other factors. One is the commons, the idea that unlike land which we own, water is a public resource. We can damage the water without any responsibility of ownership. This is the idea of the tragedy of the commons, how we have a tendency to overuse shared resources. For surface water, our relationship is more distant because once it flows off of our property, it goes somewhere else, down in the watershed or eventually down in the Gulf. Most of us have little understanding of our watershed or connections to the people who live in it. We know our county and our school districts, but few of us could draw a map of our watershed. The second complication is the economic concept of externalities, the idea that some of the costs are borne outside of the transaction. If the parties don't account for these costs, then the costs are borne by others. For example, the cost of water pollution is borne by whoever has to clean up the water, or by having fewer shrimp in the Gulf to harvest. That is, unless law requires the cost to be accounted for or avoided. Regulations can limit negative actions by allocating the cost to those who cause the harm. If a person does not feel any moral restraint from acting, or if the economic gains exceed the benefit of not acting, why would we expect them to stop voluntarily? This is uneconomic and goes against human nature. As long as Iowa relies only on voluntary efforts to improve water quality, our efforts are flawed and the results will be disappointing. Examining what actions might work for Iowa to actually make progress on improving water quality, particularly by looking at the experience of states using regulations, are subjects of future episodes. This has been Professor Neil Hamilton, the Drake University Agricultural Law Center, with today's Our Water, Our Land.